Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for stopping by. We've talked about a lot of different weapons all throughout Season 3, what's really, risen up in ranks because of all the weapon tuning, what weapons have stayed very dominant all throughout the season. The SMG category in particular has been a ton of fun to mess around with all season long just because there's so many different options when it comes to what's actually viable and what's actually competitive. And today we're breaking down what I think are the top 5 best SMGs in Warzone right now. As always, if you enjoy the video at any point, or if you find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it, would be seriously appreciated. And of course, if you're new here, or if you haven't already subscribed, I am always covering everything going on in COD, news, intel, updates, loadouts, it's all right here. So feel free to subscribe, that way you can always stay up to date. So first up, coming in at the number 5 spot, I've got the AK-74U, but I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of a toss-up between the 74U or the Bullfrog. Both are honestly really good SMGs right now, but the AK-74U recently has just felt really good. I've seen more, pro players, tournament players using this on their loadouts as a secondary. Up close, the thing is pretty insane, especially when you factor in headshots. It's basically the Bullfrog 2.0 in the sense of when you're landing headshots with this thing, the TTK is actually nuts. It's better than pretty much every other SMG in the game, up to a certain range. So if your aim is good, the 74U is a very rewarding weapon. Not to mention its mobility is really good, especially with the build that I've got for it. Its iron sights when you use a variant are incredibly clean, so all around, I'm a fan. Definitely a very underrated SMG that I think a lot of people are sleeping on, but lo and behold, it is statistically one of the best subs we actually have available right now. So when it comes to the attachment setup here, first and foremost, I got the sound suppressor. You could try and rock the GRU on here for a bit better range, but honestly, I like the added mobility and the added speed that the sound suppressor offers, so I go ahead and run that since obviously you're using this up close as is. That extra mobility really helps out. I've also got the Task Force barrel on there, better mobility, better range, better velocity, by far the best choice on every single Cold War SMG pretty much, so that's sort of a no-brainer there. Personally, as you guys know, I'm all about mobility. I'm all about playing very aggressive, so I rock the combination of the Tiger Team Spotlight and the Bruiser Grip. Both of those are going to increase the mobility here a ton, so you can fly around with this thing. However, if you're not super focused on mobility, you want something a bit more balanced for versatility, let's say, you could probably swap out the Bruiser Grip for like the Raider stock or the Skeletal stock, whichever one it is in this case, and that'll serve a pretty good purpose as well. Then finally, I've got the 50 round drum on there. That extra ammo is pretty much a necessity if you're playing trios or quads, even duos sometimes. Sort of a standard attachment setup on every single weapon here with the upgraded ammo. So all around, a super dominant, very efficient setup. Now, next up at number 4, I've got the MAC-10. Honestly, I wish this was number 1. By far, the MAC-10 is my favorite SMG in the game right now. If we see some other buffs or nerfs here in the coming days, maybe that changes, but right now the MAC-10 is just, it's so much fun to use. I love the iron sights on the Gallantry variant. I love the mobility on it. Like, everything about the MAC-10 I feel like is so much fun. This is by far my go-to SMG when it comes down to it. You guys have heard me rant and rave about this one all throughout like Season 2, Season 3. Ever since it was introduced, I've been using this on almost all of my loadouts. And the setup here is almost a copy and paste of the 74U setup. Again, you can make some changes on it depending on how you really want to build the weapon, but personally, I love using the sound suppressor yet again for all the same reasons as before. Task Force, same deal there. Once again, we're going for max mobility on the Tiger Team Spotlight and the Striker Grip. Striker and Bruiser are basically the same attachment, just named differently. Then I've also got the 53 round drum on there. However, I know a lot of people opt for no underbarrel. Instead, they'll go for a Raider stock or a Serpent Wrap, get some better, sprint to fire time, better ADS speed, depending on if you want that over that max mobility, that max movement speed. But overall, this is one of the fastest setups you can get in the game. Ton of fun, great for close range fights, and by far one of the best SMGs. Then coming in at number 3, we've got the LC10, and this is sort of the ranged SMG option here. You got the MP7, you've got the LC10. Both these are really good up close because obviously they're SMGs, that's where they're going to shine the most. But each of these also have pretty good range for an SMG. You can actually compete in those medium range fights to a certain extent against other weapons that are, way better in those situations most of the time. But these two weapons, very special. However, the LC10, in my opinion, takes the W over the MP7. Unfortunately, again, I love the MP7. It's one of my favorite SMGs too. But the LC10, just statistically, physically, the way it feels in game, it just overtakes the MP7 as that best hybrid SMG. And again, I don't see this a ton in game, but it's been proven the LC10 is an absolute beast in the current meta. Its TTK is extremely competitive. Its mobility is great. Like I said, its range and its damage in turn are also fantastic, especially for it being a sub. So You really can't go wrong with this thing. It's one of the best sniper support options in the game, and then even using it with something like an AMAX, a RAM, an LMG, you name it, this thing is a great secondary in all sorts of different ways. So for the setup here, we are once again using the sound suppressor for our muzzle. However, you could definitely use the agency here in this case, just because, like I said, if you want to use it in medium range fights where it's actually viable, that extra range that the agency is going to offer compared to the sound suppressor could be somewhat beneficial, but sound suppressor is definitely a safe bet regardless. I've also got the task force on there for all the same reasons as before. Same deal with the Tiger Team Spotlight. However, here I actually opt for the Raider stock over an underbarrel just to get that better sprint to fire and that better strafe speed. Then I've also got the 55 round mags on there as well. Now, after that, at the number 2 spot, taking home that silver medal, I've got the Cold War MP5. This might be a bit of a controversial placement for this weapon. I know a lot of people swear by the Cold War MP5. At the same time, a lot of other people also don't really like this weapon all that much. I would say out of everything we have in this video, this is by far the least convenient SMG to use. It's the most difficult to use. That's primarily because of its recoil. It is way more noticeable than the recoil on any of the other weapons we've talked about today, and honestly, most of the other SMGs as well, but that's really the only downside of the Cold War MP5. After you get that recoil pattern down, which honestly, it's relatively easy, it's pretty much just straight vertical, it's just really harsh when you're shooting. After you get that pattern down, you're pretty much good to go. If you can keep this gun on target, it is going to fry. The TTK here is the best in class in multiple different areas. Its headshots are great. Its range, honestly, is not too bad, but you're not going to be using it in a ton of medium range fights just because of that recoil. It's going to make it a bit harder to stay on target. But when it comes to where an SMG is going to shine, the Cold War MP5 absolutely does. Like I said, somewhat hard to use, but it's high risk, high reward. This thing is going to melt players. As far as the setup goes here, it's a bit different. We once again have the sound suppressor on there. I don't use a barrel. Task force really is not entirely necessary here. Instead, I end up going for a different attachment. I've got the Tiger Team and the Bruiser yet again, so you get that added mobility. Not entirely necessary, especially with the recoil. I know a lot of people would rather opt for a Field Agent. That's totally fine. Another great build with that on there too. I've also got the 50 round mags on there, the 50 round drums rather. And then because I don't use any barrel, I actually use the Raider stock instead. And that's going to give me some better sprint to fire, that better strafing speed. So you get some good mobility out of this. You're also able to just fry because of just how strong and how powerful the Cold War MP5 is at its core. So all around, a fantastic SMG. And then, of course, coming in at the number 1 spot, we've got old, reliable, the Modern Warfare MP5. I'm going to be honest, it doesn't have the best TTK, it does not have the best damage, but it's got great mobility, great control, competitive damage, and a competitive TTK. In my opinion, the Modern Warfare MP5 is the most well-rounded SMG we currently have in the game. There's obviously a lot of competition here, but you can't go wrong with it. That's the thing that I love about it. If you're struggling with other SMGs, you can always come back to the Modern Warfare MP5 and do well with it. It's easy to use, it's consistent, it's reliable. At the end of the day, that's what makes it my number 1. And as far as the setup goes here, it's the same setup we've been using for what seems like forever. Monolithic integral suppressor. We've got the 5 milliwatt on there for better hip fire accuracy. The Merc foregrip for more of the same, and then also just some better control in general. The 45 round mags, and then you can either go between sleight of hand, the stipple grip tape, or the collapsible stock. Really, any of those are going to do just fine. If Specialist was still in the game, I would never run sleight of hand. I'd definitely go for like the collapsible, but because that's no longer here, sleight of hand can actually come in handy, especially if you are more of an aggressive player. So yeah, there you have it. With all of that being said, those are effectively the top 5 best SMGs and the best loadouts for them here in Warzone right now. That's going to wrap things up for today. If you enjoyed the video, or if you found it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you're new here, or if you haven't already subscribed, I am always covering everything going on in COD. News, intel, updates, loadouts, tips. It's pretty much all right here, so feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. That way you'll always know whenever I post a new video. As always, if you want to check out any of my partners, be sure to use code IMMORTAL for a discount on all Scuff, G Fuel, Gamer Advantage, and Control Freak products. And the links for all those can be found down in the description below. But once again, thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.